welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Catherine Luckin. Hi, Catherine, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, Claire.
Catherine is the CEO of the Australian Academy Health and Medical Sciences, a non-profit organization promoting health and medical research. Catherine has a decade of experience and a strong global network, having worked in the UK and Australia, supporting research and innovation, particularly in the health and medical sciences, through roles in policy, public affairs, strategy, and international relationships. I think I got that right. Yeah?
Right.
What you might not know about her is she's teaching herself to make gelato. Catherine, to get to know you even better, I've got some quick questions for you. Here they go. What superpower do you wish you had?
Time travel.
What's the best getaway you ever went on?
Japan. We went on our honeymoon, and I hope I can go again at some point.
That sounds lovely, Japan and the honeymoon. What's the most adventurous thing you ever done?
Moving to the other side of the world to live.
I can relate to that. And what makes you sing out loud?
The researchers I work with, the academy that I work for has members, we call them fellows, and they're Australia's leading researchers, and getting to work with them on a daily basis makes me sing, metaphorically.
Yeah, nice. And who is your greatest role model?
At risk of sounding cheesy, I have to say my mum.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, let's talk about your take on how you shift your leadership. And my first question for that is, what's your take on adaptability, and where do you see the biggest opportunity to adapt?
I think adaptability is something that perhaps you don't know you have until it's tested. And I imagine that a lot of people have found that over the past few months. I know my adaptability is being pushed to new levels. I guess my most experience of adaptability has come from the fact that during my career, I've often taken on new initiatives or new projects and developing things from scratch. So, for example, my current role as Chief Executive of the Academy, I was the first person to hold that role, which was established a few years after the Academy was set up. The role is really to take the organisation into its next phase and to advance it forward. Done similar things in previous roles in my career, taking forward new ideas and new initiatives. And I think that requires a lot of adaptability because things don't always go to plan, especially when you're starting from scratch or from a low base. And often perhaps you might be working with low resources or without a full team in place and having to do a lot of different things and face the sorts of barriers and challenges that come along. So I think in that journey that the biggest thing I've learned is that a bit of self-compassion can go a long way. Understanding that there will be hurdles and there will be barriers, and being realistic about how you're able to respond to those and what you can expect from yourself is really important. And that self-compassion can really help you look forward rather than perhaps dwelling on some of the things you may wish you'd done better if you had that hindsight.
Yeah, beautiful. I agree. It's self-compassion is absolutely crucial in these times. And in times of pressure, how do you ensure that strategic thinking is prioritized?
Well, the issue with pressure is that it's about time, isn't it? And having the time to carve out for that strategic thinking. So I try to look at this from two directions. The first is that even when you're under pressure, you don't stop having those ideas. You just need to carve out the time to think about them. So I have a system through which I note down those ideas to make sure they're not lost, so that I can then come back to them, look at the various ideas I've had alongside each other and think about which to take forward, which are going to be most valuable or likely to succeed. And then the flip side is trying to ensure that you have the time by removing those distractions. So one of the things I try and do is lump those distractions all in one place. So for example, I use Fridays to cover a lot of those tasks, a lot of the sort of admin tasks. And that means that earlier in the week, when perhaps I'm more at my best, I can use that time to really get into the strategic thinking. And I think seeking input from others as well, that the colleagues and teammates and external stakeholders can all be really valuable when you're trying to develop that strategic thinking. Yeah.
Great focused approach. Hey, and what do you do to keep up with leadership and industry developments?
Well, networking is key here. And so knowing what your objectives are from for keeping up with those developments, and knowing therefore who your priorities are for networking. For me personally at the moment, one of my key priorities is to keep up with developments in relation to the pandemic. And I'm very fortunate because the people I can ask about that are our members, our fellows, and they are the country's leading researchers. So I'm very privileged to be able to ask them about how things are going and what we might expect looking forward.
Yeah, yeah. And when you find yourself dealing with complex dilemmas, how do you get clarity in those?
Well, for me, the key thing is understanding what the problem is. So if it's a complex question, what are the problems, or what is the problem, or what's the cause that we need to address, and then seeking insight from experts on those problems. So again, one of the things that I'm doing a lot at the moment is thinking about some of the policy challenges related to the pandemic. They're often very complex. And trying to think about the science advice or the scientific evidence that can help us solve those. And that's really about seeking insights from a range of experts, and acknowledging that often these things require input from multiple perspectives or multiple areas of expertise. And then finally, it's also about knowing what we don't know and being willing to acknowledge that. So also being willing to say, well, perhaps we don't know yet, and really being clear about where the limitations of our knowledge are, and therefore what we're able to say and what we're able to not say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not only complex dilemmas that you're dealing with, but also unprecedented issues. And I think we all are to some degrees, but thanks for sharing those insights in your approach. And from reflection on these questions, what have you told yourself that you're going to do differently, or maybe be differently going forward?
Well, the first thing I think I'd come back to is that idea of self-compassion, and remembering that and maintaining it. I think that can go a long way. Thinking about networking as well, not losing those opportunities. We're not bumping into people in the way that we might usually, whether that's in an office, in an airport, or otherwise. So just being a bit more proactive about carving out those opportunities and getting in touch with the people we need to catch up with. And then finally, carving out the downtime. So, it doesn't even need to be long if you make it meaningful. For me, that's been about carving out time for exercise every morning. And everyone will have different ways in which they switch off. But really carving out that time and making sure it's meaningful, I've found to be really valuable. Yeah, I agree. And carving out the downtime for self-compassion, but also to celebrate, right? The little wins and the little steps to progress. So thanks so much for sharing, Catherine. It was really lovely to hear your take on how you shift your leadership. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope to see you next time. Keep shifting, have self-compassion, but keep shifting. See ya. Bye.